My name is Conrad Saldana. I have worked for around 30 years in industry, followed with another 10 years in an academic institution, and now I am a writer and a trainer. I am here to share with you 2 points. One, on the value of taking responsibility for the entirety of one's life, and second, what are the values which we need to live in communion with one another. Soon after doing my postgraduate studies in management, I worked in industry for just 2 years before experiencing total disillusionment with life in industry. I began to blame my boss. I began to blame my colleagues. I began to blame the work which I was doing. I began to blame the organization. I began to blame everything and everybody for the dissatisfaction which I was experiencing. I did not realize at that time that I was placing my center of gravity outside of myself. It was during this time that I engaged and participated in various programs focused on the development of the human person. And it was at one of those programs that I realized, fortunately for me, that I am the cause of all that I experience. I repeat, I am the cause of all that I experience. That means no matter what circumstances I find myself in, no matter what events I come across and immerse myself in, no matter which type of people I am working with, I have the choice to respond whichever way I want to, and thereby I become the cause of all that I experience. I can respond in a very victimized manner, or I can respond in a very creative manner. The choice is mine. Let me give you an example. If I am stuck in a traffic jam, then I can utilize that time which I am experiencing in the traffic jam to blame the government for not repairing the potholes. I can blame the number of cars and three-wheelers and two-wheelers on the road. I can blame the floods. I can blame anything and everybody for this particular traffic jam. In fact, I can use this traffic jam as a catharsis for my frustration. Or I could respond in a very constructive manner. I can utilize the time very constructively for thinking about all the issues I need to address in the office today. Or I could listen to some important podcasts or listen to some music through my smartphone, or even silently meditate. The choice is mine. I can either become a victim or a creator of meaning. I can either be hooked with the past as well as the present and forget about creating the future. I need to take responsibility for my whole life because I value my life. If I did not value my life, then I would not be taking responsibility for the entirety of my life and thereby become a constructive creator of meaning. Let us take up the second point. What are the values which we need to live in communion with one another? If we look at it very factually, everything is related to everything. Just by being on this planet, I am interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent with everything. As Gregory Bateson, the famous anthropologist, stated, relationship is at the heart of life. then why is it that we cannot experience living in communion? Let us reflect on our own bodies. When we look at our bodies, we find there are at least over 35 trillion cells in our body. Not all of them are the same. There are at least 100, 200 in fact, different types of cells. So therefore, these cells are not of the same type. There are at least 200 different types of cells. And yet, though they are different, they cannot claim to be separate from one another. They are in continuous relationship and they are continuously collaborating in harmony with one another in order to keep us alive. When we look at also our systems within the body, we have a digestive system, we have a circulatory system, we have an immune system, etc. Can we say that these systems are separate? Can we say that these systems are different? Definitely. But even though the digestive system is different from the circulatory system, is different from the immune system, it cannot say that it is separate. They are highly interconnected, interrelated and interdependent. Similarly, we may have muscle cells, blood cells, immune cells. There are different types of cells, but can these cells say that they are separate from one another? They all belong to the body. And it is the body which gives them purpose. And therefore, when we realize this, we start thinking, are we emphasizing more our differences to the extent of trying to realize our identities in the extremity of our differences? In other words, it means that can the digestive system fulfill itself by itself outside of the body and not related or connected or dependent on the other systems? It cannot. And therefore we need to realize that only when the digestive system is in harmony with the other systems will it fulfill itself. Similarly, we need to look at belonging to the human community. We need to look at belonging to the human race. And that is when we realize that even though we have our differences, we may belong to different nations, we may belong to different castes, we may belong to different economic classes, we may belong to different religions. However, deep down, we belong to the human community. All of us are human persons. And therefore, if the whole of mankind needs to fulfill itself, then each of us needs to fulfill ourselves. We are interconnected and interrelated and interdependent. The fulfillment of us is dependent on the fulfillment of mankind, and the fulfillment of mankind is dependent on the fulfillment of us. And therefore, Teilhard de Chardin very beautifully says, union differentiates. Let us now look at another point which helps us to live in communion. And that is when we look at our bodies, we find that suppose I lose my right hand, automatically my left hand appropriates the strength and skills of my right hand. If I lose my sight, automatically my hearing becomes very acute. It looks as if the body is trying to compensate for its loss and create an optimum functioning. It looks as if the body wants to maintain its unbroken wholeness. Similarly, when we have a wound, the whole body orchestrates itself in order to heal that wound. Let us look at this reflection very, very deeply. When we look at ourselves, it means if we are a human community, if we belong to the human race, if we are one with all the flora and fauna, then what happens is that if any of us is suffering, if any of us is wounded, then we need to go and support and heal that person. And we need to outreach. We need to enlarge our circle of concern. We need to show compassion. We need to show inclusiveness. And that is when we realize that we will be able to live with our differences and yet be community. So therefore, to sum up, let me state the following. Today more than ever, we need to shift our mindsets from separateness to experiencing interdependence and interrelatedness. I need you to know who I am. We need to shift from extreme individualism to inclusiveness and collaboration. We need to be responsible not only for our lives, but we need to be responsible for others' lives as well. No one should be in want. No one should suffer in isolation. And we need to realize that if the whole of mankind needs to be fulfilled, each of us needs to be fulfilled because we are interrelated and interdependent. We need more compassion and more inclusiveness. Thank you.